Microphone check. Microphone check. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me in the live chat. JDeer48401. He's been first to comment for like a week straight. So I am getting some people initially saying no sound, but I did switch a microphone. So just making sure that we do have audio. So give me that thumbs up if we've got audio as I check out the live chat here. Perfect. Looks good. All right. Good morning, chat. Morning, all. Okay. Appreciate you guys doing a little bit of engineering for me and lips and audio match. Okay, good. So I just got that indication there from Hometown Boss. BOZ. So good stuff. Thumbs up. Appreciate you guys being here. I guess it's good to know that you got a loyal audience willing to sit through some of the technical issues as we work on getting this live rig exactly where it needs to be, because we got big things coming for the center square and what you guys are watching every day. And Illinois in Focus, we're going to keep that around, but we're going to be looking at some other things. So appreciate you guys being here along for the ride. All right, so a lot to tackle this morning. As always, the legislature's not in. You've got the ongoing focus on what's going on in Minnesota. So that's clearly going to be headlining as the president of the United States and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz had a conversation yesterday. And what does that ultimately mean with Tom Homan coming in and Greg Bovino moving out? How is the situation going to change in Minnesota, especially with the question of whether or not local law enforcement are going to cooperate with federal immigration officials. So clearly that's going to be a major focus in national news. But we've got stuff to focus on here in Illinois, including the Chicago Inspector General talking with the Center Square's Jim Talamonte. I'll share some of her comments about a recent report out of her office, essentially detailing overtime issues that need to be addressed. So we'll hear a little bit about that. Also, we'll hear from a taxpayer-centric group about warnings of local governments possibly using your tax dollars to do public polling. So that as well is something that we'll have here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, editor of Illinois, and we got a great team at Illinois that helps put things together. And I'm here with you each and every weekday morning. Couldn't appreciate you more for being here with us. So strap in, a couple of quick segments here, and we'll get you on with your morning. This is Illinois in Focus Daily, only with the Center Square. Chicago Inspector General hopes for urgency to address overtime mistakes. It's a headline you'll find at thecentersquare.com, Illinois, and you can get those headlines in your inbox by going to thecentersquare.com and signing up for the newsletter today. So Jim Talamonte, a reporter for the Center Square, reporting out that the Inspector General for the city of Chicago is interested in getting the overtime issues resolved. And you can read the story at the Center Square and also watch some clips of her conversation with Jim Talamonte. We'll air some of those for you here. Just a sample of what she had to say on the issue of just how urgent things should be in this space.
Should some of these people have known to ask questions when money unexpectedly landed in their bank accounts? Probably yes.
So the Inspector General indicating that, there were some overtime payouts that people should have realized it was probably not appropriate. So let's take a look again at Jim's article as we read through. Chicago's Inspector General says she hopes it's urgency in correcting mistakes as the city paid $26.5 million in overtime to potential ineligible employees. employees. Now, the Office of Inspector General found overtime was paid to workers in 24 city departments, and the Elections Board, City Clerk's Office, and City Council from 2020 to 2024. Mayor Brandon Johnson said the city's finance department has already taken corrective actions. Obviously, this is an issue that Johnson has said, and he says it's critical that we eliminate any of the redundancies in any of the repayment errors to ensure that every single tax dollar is accounted for. But Deborah Weitzberg, the Inspector General, said that her office first advised the city of the problems 13 years ago. Jim Talamonte, reporting for the Center Square, talking with the Inspector General last week, and she spelled out that indeed there's some things to do and how long it's going to take for them to do it.
This is often the case when we identify things that go wrong in city government, that there is a problem which does not itself live within the four corners of any one city department, and so neither does its solution. There are many of these problems which reach into different city departments, and so their solutions must come from many city departments as well. The Department of Human Resources and the Department of Finance are, as you say, kind of the centralized city functions at the heart of this, but obviously also involved here are all of the city departments for which the employees at issue work. What I am hoping will happen is something that looks a lot like what the city committed to doing 13 years ago when OIG first notified the city of this problem, which is to work with everybody involved, including the city departments at issue, to make sure we've accounted properly in the city's records for people's overtime eligibility status, that we are paying people every dollar of what they are owed and not more than that.
So the issue, obviously, costing taxpayers, and you got to think about just exactly where the city of Chicago is at with their taxpayer spending. It seems like a decade ago, but it was literally last month where about this time we were thinking, well, what's going to happen with the city budget? And as we were approaching Christmas last month, we still didn't know if the city was going to have a budget for January 1st. And the mayor ultimately not signing that budget, just allowing it to go into effect because of all the questions of, the tax and spend, and do they want to increase taxes on higher income earners? How do they do that? The mayor saying that there needs to be progressive revenue and such. So obviously the city's budget's very tight. So $20+ million in overtime. That's something that can be used to shore up the city's budget. And if it's being done inappropriately, then you've got other issues there. The Inspector General, though, wouldn't say that there was wrongdoing in these cases that she found.
It's important to say here, we did not go looking for, nor did we find any evidence of any individual wrongdoing with respect to this issue. There's no suggestion here that any of these people are stealing overtime or anything like that. I think this is a series of mistakes. The city is not in a place where we can afford an 8-figure mistake. Now, should some of these people have known to ask questions when money unexpectedly landed in their bank accounts? Probably yes.
Now, this isn't just an issue with city government. We've talked about here with Illinois in Focus in previous stories about state agencies, and we looked at some of the payroll records from, for instance, the Department of Children and Family Services, and there's potentially a lot of overtime going there where some employees were making 6 figures, and we're talking $300,000 plus. More so than the Department of Children and Family Services director even. So that obviously is an issue not just for local governments like the city of Chicago, and I would imagine even smaller governments down to even the city of Springfield's had their problems with overtime issues. This is pervasive throughout government and something that obviously impacts the taxpayers. Department of Corrections in the state government, another area where there's a lot of overtime. And we hear about those during budget season, right? And we'll obviously be looking at that as the legislature starts crafting that budget. But back to the city of Chicago, city taxpayers getting hit with those overtime charges. What's the urgency here? How quick should they attack this? The Inspector General, Deborah Weitzberg, talking with Jim Talamonte from the Center Square.
Generously, we get what I would describe as a wide range of quality of responses from City Hall to our oversight products, right? Sometimes we get very productive responses and sometimes we get very unproductive responses. The responses we got here from both DHR and DOF are productive and thoughtful and constructive responses, and I am sincerely appreciative of that. We should all be heartened by that. The responses that the city sent in 2013 were also thoughtful and productive. And here we are 13 years later. So is there a sense of urgency? I hope so. I think the city is in unprecedented budget times. I hope that that is kind of a catalyst to prompt action.
Well, we're always in unprecedented budget times, it seems, in the state of Illinois, as it's not just city taxpayers, but state taxpayers as well getting hit, and a lot of tax dollars that could be going to hiring more people, so you don't have as much overtime, and how those resources can be used elsewhere. As the city grapples with that, the state's going to grapple with it. Your local government's likely is going to grapple with it as well. And it's all a consideration of how the taxpayers are funding this. All right, it is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning here for Illinois in Focus Daily, only with the Center Square.
We need the Attorney General to step in and say, the buck stops here. The Attorney General is not going to allow local governments to break the law anymore in the state of Illinois.
I'm not informed on that. It should be clear that in Illinois' landscape of criminal enforcement, we are not the primary prosecutor's office.
It's Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul reacting to a question from the Center Square last week of concerns brought forward by Americans for Prosperity Illinois concerning the issue of taxpayer dollars and how they're used by local governments to possibly promote tax increase referendum. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Wake up with us at thecentersquare.com. Get the newsletter in your inbox, and all those headlines will be there, but you can check out other headlines at thecentersquare.com. Talked with Americans for Prosperity Illinois Director Brian Costin. He's the state director of AFP Illinois, and he talked about what they're finding and how they need some clarity from the Illinois Attorney General for issues that voters determine, but how are they being swayed by local officials using taxpayer dollars is a question that we've seen brought up in previous election times, but here we are approaching a 2026 election, and you could have across the state local referendum about tax increases, and Brian says that he's concerned as to how this ultimately will impact taxpayers if it's not clarified.
We need the Attorney General to step in and say, the buck stops here. Yeah, so we've seen this in a number of places across the state of Illinois where local taxing bodies are using public money to hire what I would call as professional tax hiking organizations to run public campaigns designed to gather support for tax hike referendums, specifically property tax hike referendums. And in some of these cases before, there's not a lot of avenue for citizens to do anything about it.
County, so I hope you ask the same.
How they can think that they've crossed the line in District 214, where they've done polling basically to get an understanding of what is the level of tax hike that the public might be comfortable with. They are trying to figure out how they can raise taxes on the people. And in the State Employees and Ethics Act, polling in connection with a referendum is verboten. It's not supposed to happen. And so we've sent a letter to the Attorney General asking them for clarification on the issue. Is this legal? Is this not legal? According to state statute, it looks like it's illegal. There's really no government body that is really paying attention to this too closely. In the past, we have sent some things to the Attorney General, and they basically said this is not our jurisdiction. Well, whose jurisdiction is it for the State Employees and Ethics Act? local governments are supposed to be following these laws. So we want to get some clarification from the Attorney General. Can local government bodies work with private firms that say on their materials that their job and what they do and what they're successful at is passing tax hike referendums on the people of Illinois who are paying the highest property taxes in the nation? We think that taxpayers need a little bit of defending in the state of Illinois, and that's what we're trying to do.
So Costin laying that out for District 214, which I believe is a high school district in Arlington Heights. But he says that it's happened elsewhere. And you think about this in the context, too, of in 2020, there was a referendum on the ballot statewide asking voters in Illinois to change the state constitution's flat income tax to a tax with higher rates for higher earners. And voters rejected that. There was advocacy from state legislators when they were discussing the measure on the General Assembly floor, but that wasn't using tax dollars to go out and try to gauge public interest about it, other than through that referendum process, right? Yes, tax dollars were used, but the question was vetted to be clear, concise, and neutral. It wasn't a poll of sorts to say, hey, do you want to tax the rich to feed the poor, or do you want to let the wealthy keep their money, right? And you can craft poll questions all kinds of different ways. So, you have the referendum process and elected officials debating it and, advocating or opposing it, right? But that's in their official capacity as a legislative body. If the governor's office was to use official governor office, resources to put out messaging in favor of the issue, that would raise some ethical questions. Well, what about on the local government if they do that? So that's what Costin's warning about. And he says this has happened in the past and they really need that clarity.
Yeah, so it's very, very common that when a property tax increase, sales tax increase referendum goes on the ballot, that local government bodies hire people for public information campaigns. They're not supposed to cross a line and actually encourage people to vote one way or the other. But we can't, say, for example, in District 214, which is proposing up to a they're talking about proposing a $900 million referendum. The materials that they were receiving from the companies to do these public information campaigns were loaded with references of passing referendums in difficult tax environments. And so it's quite clear that the types of firms that they're trying to hire are people who are engaging in politics. A couple of stories: Rochester, Illinois. They hired a couple of firms to do the Creative Entourage was the name of the organization, and they hired them to do polling, basically asking, do you think that the library is valuable? Do we need money? Do you support that? And then they turned that information over to first the Rochester Library, and then the Rochester Library sent that over to the campaign committee, including all the information of the people who took that poll. That crossed the line. We filed an ethics complaint. The Ethics Commission basically said, yes, these things that we were saying are essentially true, but we can't do anything about it because their ordinance was defective. So what happens when local governments are breaking the law to try to pass tax increases? We need the Attorney General to step in and say, the buck stops here. The Attorney General is not going to allow local governments to break the law anymore in the state of Illinois. They do have a model ordinance on their website, which they recommend to local governments to use to comply with state law. But then there's no enforcement of it when local governments cross that line. And so we need the Attorney General or the General Assembly to say, hey, we need someone to step in and make sure that taxpayers are being protected and local governments aren't engaging in prohibited political activity that tip the scales in favor of tax hikes on the people of Illinois, who are the most taxed people in the entire country.
Now, the Center Square's Jim Talamonte was in front of Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul last week, and he asked about, is this worth investigating in this particular school district that AFP Illinois raised, but also just the general issue. Here's what the Attorney General responded with.
I'm not informed on that. It should be clear that in Illinois' landscape of criminal enforcement, we are not the primary prosecutor's office. There are some attorneys general offices in other attorney general's offices in other states where they are both the statewide prosecutor and the local prosecutor. The majority of criminal cases in the state of Illinois and the structure of our criminal justice system are prosecuted by local prosecutors. So I don't even know where District 214 is, whether it's in Cook County or another county. So I hope you ask the same question to the local prosecutor wherever District 214 is.
So you've got Costin saying that they've put formal requests in. They've tried to do this. Local bodies saying they don't really know how to rectify this or hold people accountable. And Costin's group, AFP Illinois, is asking for the Attorney General to clarify this. So we'll see if there's any further on this. But Costin warning taxpayers ahead of the 2026 elections as to watching their local governments and how they're spending dollars on potential referendum questions.
Yeah, there's going to be elections and referendums that are coming up this November and next year in April. I think what you should be aware of as a taxpayer is if you see your local government body hiring a company to doing a political public information campaign, that should set your alarm off, and then you should start digging into it to see if they are crossing the line and violating state law. The reason that they do these public information campaigns is primarily to raise your taxes. And so if they're doing polling to see what type of tax hike that the public might be comfortable with, that's a big red flag. If they're talking only on one side of the issue on why this is absolutely necessary and not talking about the costs to the taxpayers, that's another giant red flag. If you're having issues with that, reach out to an organization like Americans for Prosperity. We're interested in balancing the scales a little bit for the taxpayers. We want to make sure that local governments aren't breaking the law. And if you suspect that, please reach out to us and we'll see what we can do.
Clearly, we'll hear a lot more about this as we get closer to the elections. We got a March primary statewide, and there might be some local questions that you have to consider. Then you got the election in November. We could see a referendum statewide on the ballot in November concerning tax increases for millionaires. These are just some of the stories that you'll see at the Center Square, Illinois. Encourage you to go check that out, where another great report from Jim Talamonte about last night's debate between 3 of the 10 Democrats running for U.S. Senate. You can also read about a proposal to tax millionaires with half the money going to school districts and half the money going to property tax relief, and so many other stories at thecentersquare.com. So go get the headlines in your inbox. Again, at thecentersquare.com. Click newsletter and sign up today. We'll be with it each and every weekday morning here for the Center Square with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Have yourselves a great rest of the day. All right, that's all I got for you. Appreciate everybody in the chat keeping me posted on the audio situation. I think we may have figured out bypassing a streamer to go directly, and we'll just get down any lag, and internet seems to be doing just fine. Cameras are in the good spot, so you guys are on the ground level here, all right, helping work out all of these kinks and all the technology. So greatly appreciate you guys being here each and every weekday morning. Really does fuel my fire to do what I do. So you guys just keep it coming, all right? And stay tuned to thecentersquare.com. A lot of big things coming. National headlines, what's going on in D.C., what's going on in Minnesota, California, Washington State, and including right here in Illinois and beyond. So go check it out, thecentersquare.com. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. We'll be back at it tomorrow for more Illinois in Focus Daily.
So,